In this video, we're going to talk about removing a trustee from his position in a trust. Hi, I'm estate planning attorney Richard Barid, part of Smith Barid LLC, and one half of the Estate Planning Guys. So how do you remove a trustee? Let's say that there's a trust, your brother-in-law is in charge of it, your wife is a beneficiary, some other family members are a beneficiary, and things just aren't going well for whatever reason. You want to try to remove the trustee from the trust. So there are a few ways to go about that. First is you want to look at the terms of the trust, or have your lawyer look at the terms of the trust. Many trusts drafted these days have a procedure in place for removing a trustee, and it might be something like, if all the income beneficiaries agree, then we can remove the trustee. Some would say if a majority of the income beneficiaries or a majority of the grantor's children, the person who made the trust, their kids, a majority of those kids could remove a trustee. So looking through the trust is the first thing that ought to happen. You may need a lawyer's help to pick through all the legalese, but there's probably a way to do that in there. And one of those ways to do that is the second way we ought to discuss, which is by use of a trust director. Now, different states talk about a trust director differently. Georgia calls it a trust director. Some states call it a trust advisor. Some will call it a trust protector. Some will call it a special co-trustee. It all means the same thing. There are certain powers built in, sort of a safety valve, especially for an irrevocable trust, but also for revocable trusts. And a trust director is often able to come in appointed by the majority of the beneficiaries or a unanimous vote of the beneficiaries. This is going to be a person who has no personal interest in the trust. They would just be serving temporarily to help direct the trustee. In this case, we're trying to direct the trustee out of their position. And in a lot of cases, the trust is written so that the trust director has authority to remove a trustee for any reason at all. So that can be an effective way to do it. Now, one of the challenges with either looking just to the language of the trust or even having a trust director appointed is that those are what we call non-judicial remedies. We don't have to involve a court. So for you and me, or anybody trying to get this done, that's an advantage. It's going to be less expensive. It's going to be quicker. But there are large financial institutions who will look at the paperwork you've put together, even look at the trust itself, but then still say, no, we want a court order. We don't feel like we're protected enough. We want to make sure we're doing the right thing by everybody. We need a court order. So if that's the case and you need a court order, then you go to court and you file a suit. In Georgia, it would be in Superior Court. In some other states, it would be probate court, but there is a court where you are that has the jurisdiction to take on trust litigation. And trust litigation is what it sounds like. You usually need a lawyer, and we're presenting a case as to why this person should no longer be trustee. It could be something really obvious, like they've misappropriated, stolen money, forgot to pay bills, the consequences that come along with that, or just not doing anything at all, not being communicative, not giving an accounting to the beneficiaries if they're entitled to it and when they're entitled to it. So it's good if you're going to have a litigation over a trustee and replacing a trustee, it's a good strategic idea to have the next trustee in mind. So in some cases, the trust itself will say, if this person is out for whatever reason as trustee, then here's the next successor trustee. But some people just don't have that much depth in their trust. And so then we'd be in a situation where either the trust director has the ability to fill that vacancy, not with himself or herself, but with another person to serve as trustee, or you could pick out another person in your litigation. You could decide, you could present to the court, well, here's someone who's qualified, here's why they're qualified and why we think they'd be a good fit. Judges here have just full dockets all over the place, especially after COVID. There was a big backup. Anything you can do to make it easier for the judge to decide the way you want him or her to decide is a good idea. And one of those things at the top of the list in trustee removal type litigation is have the next person in mind. Don't make the court go searching around, or worse yet, tempt the court to postpone or continue your case while you spend 6 months trying to find a new person to be the trustee. That can cause all kinds of problems. One thing to keep in mind, if someone is the duly appointed trustee, even if you want to remove them, the trust will usually give that person the authority to use trust funds instead of their own funds to defend their position as trustee. So it's possible, and litigation can get very expensive. It can be time consuming. So it's very possible that it could be thousands, tens of thousands, or even more in legal fees coming out of what you would have been inherited through the trust as a beneficiary. So you want to think very carefully and have a really experienced litigation attorney involved to make the decisions about whether it's a good idea or not, whether it's going to be beneficial to you, the other beneficiaries, and protect the intent of the trust itself to have that sort of litigation. Otherwise, we might want to fall back to some sort of compromise situation. I hope this has been helpful. I look forward to seeing you next time. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please click below to subscribe and hit the little bell so you'll get a notification every time we post some. Right now, we're posting about 3 videos a week with all kinds of useful estate planning information. So click right down here so you don't miss anything about estate planning, and click right here on your screen for the next relevant video.